Hell. All right. Is the video all screwed up, or is the audio all screwed up? Is it just like everything else this evening? This was a culmination of multiple things that we had all worried about and wondered about, and people complained that why are you being so picky about a 6-2 football team? Why don't you enjoy life for a minute? Because there are issues. There are issues that were bound to come up when you faced either a good quarterback or whatever the hell Aaron Rodgers is right now, where in the second half he looked like vintage Aaron Rodgers. They had less than 100 yards of offense in the first half, but Aaron Rodgers ends up going on the sum total of it all, 22 for 32 for 211 yards, 118 quarterback rating. He got sacked twice. C.J. Stroud got sacked 8 times. Joe Mixon was just absolutely awesome in the first half. And then guess what? Jets defense adjusted. Aaron Rodgers, as Wade Phillips pointed out, is a hard guy to beat when he knows what you're doing. And this is what the good quarterbacks do. By the fourth quarter, they've figured out who you are, what you're going to do. When if you blitz, you're going to have Jalen Petrie manned up on Davante Adams. And the culmination of the big plays that the Texans secondary has allowed, despite playing pretty damn well most of the time, the offensive line, which is where I should have started with, now through Friday, through next Friday when they face the Detroit Lions, that offensive line is just a disaster. So spare me your PFF pass blocking grades and how awesome they are. They can't run block. Like Joe Mixon earns damn near everything on his own, or at least half of what he gets on his own. He's brilliant after contact, but they can't. They are not going to, unless they rectify some things real quickly, be a team that can go deep into the playoffs. And I mean, we'll see. Can they compete against the Detroit Lions? The Detroit Lions are a much better football team, at least over the course of the first 8 games, than the New York Jets are. The New York Jets depth chart is impressive, but I said before the game, don't be the team that lets the Jets click, that lets Aaron Rodgers figure it out with Davante Adams or Garrett Wilson. And they did it all. They just went ahead and they went down and they checked off the list of all my pregame needs. Okay, left guard. Pull Kenyon Green quickly. If you're going to give him a chance to start, pull him quickly. You know what? Oh, I forgot. They didn't even pull Kenyon Green. I remember that he got injured, but I was almost in my mind giving them credit for pulling the plug on Kenyon Green, but they didn't do it. They rolled him out there Kendrick Green wasn't perfect, but man, he is scrappy as hell and he'll compete. He almost got beat on an ET game, end in a tackle game, but he lunged like a feral cat again to glance a piece of the defensive end to allow C.J. Stroud time to step up and make a completion, which is something you don't see out of Kenyon Green. But the Texans did not pull Kenyon Green. They value the development of Kenyon Green above apparently everything else in the universe. There was rumors before the game, I think I can't remember who had tweeted it, said that the Texans had floated Kenyon Green in a trade a couple weeks ago and they got nobody interested. Is that a big surprise to everybody? Oh, nobody else in the league wants him. Maybe we should just start him at left guard continually. And, maybe Laramie Tunsil should get just destroyed for a sack by, who was that, Hassan Reddick? I can't keep track of all Hassan Reddick's pressures and sacks, or Quinnen Williams' QB hits, despite being double-teamed multiple times. That was a meltdown. There's no excuse for it being Thursday night because, look, the Jets gave you every opportunity in the first half to put some distance between yourself and them, including dropping a football from all of, 6 centimeters away from the goal line. Malachi Corley, you poor son of a bitch. I feel bad for you. I'm at least glad for Malachi Corley that his team won, because otherwise he might have been run out of town. So, there was just such a comedy of errors in that game and so many weird things. They can't even They can't even kick a field goal right. They kick a field goal. There's a penalty. So you get half the distance to the goal. You don't capitalize on it. And then in what is one of the most ornate and elegant icings of a kicker I've ever seen, he misses from point-blank range. So the Jets, a team that put their failing kicker on IR this week, ends up getting productive use out of their kicker who actually doinked an extra point in. That could have at least theoretically made it simpler at the end of the game. Yes, the offensive line is an issue. So that means the offensive line coach is an issue. That means Bobby Slowick is an issue. And everything that we worried and wondered about with can Bobby Slowick put together a complete offense? Not this year. And I know they're beleaguered in the receiving core, but there are other options out there, especially if the quarterback has time. And that we did not see that tonight. I thought early on they spread it out, opened it up a little bit. They were hitting their tight ends. They were hitting running backs. They were hitting the lesser wide receivers. The first 5 targets were all to different players, I think. And it just got worse and worse and steamrolled as the game went on. Nico Collins might come back next week. I don't know if Nico is talked about. I'm guessing you wouldn't have addressed that, but hopefully Nico comes back. I don't know if D'Amico addressed that or not, but hopefully he comes back. The second half meltdown, both defensively and offensively. Look, we've come to expect it offensively. They can't score in the second half. They're just absolutely miserable at scoring in the second half. But if you look at the drives by the Jets in the second half, 11 plays, 70 yards, touchdown. Their next drive, 12 plays, 70 yards, touchdown. Their third drive, 8 plays, 80 yards, touchdown. And that includes on both sides some ticky-tack penalties here or there. I'm obviously in no mood to discuss penalties as a factor in this game because the Texans benefited from them at times. They were hurt by them at times. But really, I mean, you look at it, the score, for all intents and purposes, should have been 28-13 if Malachi Corley had just held his water for a few centimeters more. That was just a complete shellacking on primetime football and an absolute collapse in the second half. That was Yankees-level collapse in the second half. So let's see. CJ sophomore slump really showing. I don't know as much about that as much as it is he's starting to show the toll of getting harassed constantly. And I think there's times where he can't trust the pass protection and stuff could be developing. But what's he going to expect that he's not going to get hit in the kidneys one more time? I think on the sum total of the year, I think he's dealt with very imperfect circumstances. I mean, we had Nick Caserio on his show this week saying that it was a lazy narrative that the offensive line was an issue. All right. I mean, I guess we're all a bunch of lazy SOBs, right? It was just you, me, just a bunch of lazy laggards because I could take the average Texans fan and maybe get 100 or 200 of them together, and that average group of Texans fans might make as much money in the conglomerate as Nico Collins and D'Amico Ryans. It's early in the morning. As D'Amico Ryans and Nick Caserio. But they decided to roll Kenyon Green out there and leave him to just let Quinnen Williams come and come and come. He did, basically. He might as well have. He might as well have been. I'll keep this relatively clean. Losing two of the best wide receivers in the game will take its toll. Here's the thing. I don't know if you're aware of this or not. There are many teams in the league that don't have Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs on their roster who have scored more than 10 points against the Jets. 10 points. 10 points. 10 points. You got one of the best young quarterbacks in the league. They scored 10 points. And I would love to make an excuse for the defense, like, well, they got worn down. They were tired. The Texans possessed the ball in the first half pretty damn long. And by the second half, the Jets come out, and it's an 11-play drive. Oh, okay, well, the defense is kind of tired. All right, offense comes out. They've got a 9-play field goal drive after that. The defense gets a blow. What do? 12 plays, 70 yards, touchdown. I mean, there's no excuses. You lost to a 2-6 football team that 4 days ago could not get the ball snapped. 4 days ago, the New York Jets burned up 3 timeouts in the first quarter so they didn't get delay of game penalties. Aaron Rodgers took a delay of game penalty in the fourth quarter of that game versus the Patriots because they couldn't get the ball snapped. And then that team goes out and methodically works you over like Rocky beating up a side of beef all second half to a fan 2/3 full of people wearing paper bags on their heads. That's what that was, with many Texans fans in attendance. You disrespected the Texans fans in attendance. So, no, there's no excuse for 10 points versus the Jets. None at all. 0. Missing throws because his shoulder was hurting. Yeah, I'm wondering about just how much the actual physical toll was. 13 points. No. Okay, my point about the 10 points. My point about the 10 points is when you enter the fourth quarter and like when the game is actually like there's a chance of actually doing something. They scored 13 points with 2 minutes left. So that last field goal. So no, I get your overall point. It's 13 points, whatever. When it mattered, it was 10 points. That was stuck in my head. Was all right. As Aaron Rodgers is throwing touchdown after touchdown after touchdown to the point where it got to be 21-10 and the game was all but over. You'd scored 10 points to overcome any of the other egregious mistakes that you made in that game. Nico Collins should make a difference, even with the pass protection. I know that's weird. I got annoyed earlier because I said, well, I hope Nico Collins comes back quickly, to which I was met with 2,900 people saying, O-line's the problem, Seth. Yeah, I fucking know O-line is the problem. I can't fix the fucking O-line. Can I? Like, nobody can. Apparently, the people who are getting paid to fix the offensive line and or being paid themselves to play offensive line can't fix it. Nico Collins can come back. Nico Collins on slants over the middle. Nico Collins in the quick game. Nico Collins screens. That helps allay some of the concerns about the offensive line. But fuck that if you're going to tell me, like, I can't wish for Nico Collins to come back. Yeah, the offensive line sucks. They need other people to pick up the slack. Nico Collins is one of those people. And this has been a moribund offense ever since Nico Collins hurt his hamstring. So they're middle of the pack in scoring. They couldn't score points tonight. I want Nico Collins back. Is that the only problem on the football team? Of course not. But don't be one of those idiots that think there's only one problem. On a team that fields 22 starters on offense and defense, plus special teams players, yeah, there's more than one problem at any given time in any football team. But Nico Collins is the best player on this football team right now, quarterback or otherwise. Nico Collins is a straw that stirs the drink, and he at the very least can be a part of, scoring touchdowns in the second half. So Nico Collins needs to come back. And fuck them, because they don't want to tell us whether Nico Collins is healthy or Christian Harris is healthy or anything else like that. They just want to tell us that there's no problem with the offensive line. It's an overblown concern. The offensive line is just fine, apparently. Like, what the is this Jack fucking Easterby talking to us? The offensive line is clearly an issue. They're not. You're not going to do anything with this offensive line. So my only hope can be that Nico Collins gets the offensive line better. Aaron Rodgers, kudos to you. Garrett Wilson, kudos to you. Jalen Petrie, they needed to, like I said long ago, they need to get another defensive back on this team that can cover in man, genuinely cover in man. Jalen Petrie is doing awesome when they ask him to do nickel linebacker stuff, when they ask him to cover really good wide receivers, not like the haggard bunch of whores that the Bills rolled out a couple weeks ago, when you actually have to cover good wide receivers in man coverage. He is a safety/linebacker. He's not a cornerback. So they got safety/linebackers out there doing cornerback things. And yeah, Aaron Rodgers is going to figure that out by the fourth quarter. And you're going to make him look like vintage Aaron Rodgers. Devontae Adams shows up. What did Devontae end up with? I don't think it was all that spectacular. Excuse my language, everybody. Aaron Rodgers was 1 carry for -1 yards. Good job. Hemmed that up. Devontae Adams, 7 receptions for 91 yards. He hadn't done anything before today. Garrett Wilson, 9 receptions for 90 yards. He'd had some 100-yard games, but 2 touchdowns as well. Whereas, let's see, Tank. Good job, Tank. Good job, Tank. That was good to see. Tank really stepped up big. 6 receptions for 126 yards. Robert Woods, 2 for 44, which is, and they were notable receptions. Dalton Schultz, 3 for 21. Didn't get his foot down on the sideline on that one play, which is kind of in line with everything else Dalton Schultz has done this year, which is a lesser version of whatever the hell it was he did last year that got him paid. Cade Stover, 0 receptions. This can't be. They had 3 receivers have receptions tonight. They had no run. Wait. Tank Dell, Robert Woods, and Dalton Schultz were the only people who caught footballs tonight from C.J. Stroud. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Falcons could have hired Bobby Slowick. Man. All right. I got to do a radio show in 5 hours. 6 hours. Sorry. I got to do a radio show in 6 hours, so I will leave you, and I'll try to bring back some film and fewer F-bombs. Well, let me take some questions here. Apologies to everybody. If I ever see Kenyon Green line up in front of C.J. Stroud again, I'll stop watching this team. Yeah, I hope Jarrett Patterson's feeling better. I'm really excited to see the Jarrett Patterson experience. Kudos to, and I'll go back and watch more closely, Kendrick Green, because, man, he's scrappy as hell. You know what Kendrick Green has that I haven't seen out of a single damn other offensive lineman? He's got anger, he's got fire, he's got aggression, he's got tenacity, he's got tiny little arms. He's small for a guard, and ultimately he's going to be limited in just how good of a guard. I say that there are a lot of limitations physically. He has to make up for it with a lot of scrappy play. But I don't know. Is there another scrappy offensive lineman in the bunch? That's right. I don't know. I mean, sometimes when the O-line propaganda machine gets fired up and they start firing off PFF grades and everything, watch other teams that have good offensive lines play, and then just go back and watch the Texans. Tell me if you see any of that same level of ferocity from the Texans' offensive line, including their good players or pretty good players, and it's just not there. It's not the same. But those are the guys they've chosen to give huge contracts to. And, yeah, that trick play, I don't know, man. They get down into the red zone, and all of a sudden it turns into Bobby's Funhouse. You know, you can get away with it when you're Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes, and you want to do your little ring around the rosy trick play and everything. Go for it. You're the freaking Chiefs. You're the Texans. I'd love to just see you line up and play football, man. Especially in the second half. I'd love to see you line up and play football. But my God, just unbelievable. Unbelievable. I don't think, you know what? I don't think he tapped out because to protect CJ. I've had my shoulder dislocated multiple times, and that looked like classic. Your arm's extended, somebody comes down on your arm. I mean, it's not. I don't want to make light of somebody's injury or anything. He got injured by the quarterback because his guy that he was desperately, flailingly chasing hit the quarterback. And I don't know if that's irony or what you call it, but he got injured by his own quarterback, by his own incompetence. So do whatever that falls into. Weird coincidence. I don't know. Karma. Should have went for it on 4th down instead of a field goal attempt. Yeah, I don't trust them to do anything. That was God protecting CJ. CJ was able to take Kenyon out. He can't even stop. Okay, that's good. Thanks, Orange Drake. I need that in my life right now. Oh, one hit for all the ones CJ took. Justice. All right, yeah. I don't want to fall too far into that. Oh, Bobby, a PFF merchant. That's right. Bobby did work for PFF. If Bobby gets up there and starts pulling out PFF pass rush grades in defense of his offensive line next week, I'm going to flip out. I'm just going to flip the frick out. I'll ask again, can a trade help the O-line? Yeah. I think, well, this is where, again, it would be nice if Kenyon had been benched earlier in the year and you'd gotten a better look at Patterson or Kendrick Green, then maybe, hey, if Kendrick Green had gone back in for Kenyon Green after Kenyon Green had been benched last week, perhaps you'd have a little bit better of a sample size on Kendrick Green. Patterson is nothing you can do about because of the concussion, and you don't quite know how he's going to fare as a guard. But that's they got to go out and get a guard if they want to. Like any veteran in the NFL right now, whether he's played in a system like this or not, can pick up enough and be just fine. Look, usually the arguments against getting a guard or an offensive lineman is, hey, this position, it's all about cohesion and teamwork. 5 fingers in a glove. These fuckers got 3 nubs in a glove, okay? I come from a farming family. I know nubs. I know nubbed digits. And these guys, as an offensive line unit, instead of 5 fingers in a glove, they look like a naked hand that's been caught in a silage chopper or a hay elevator. And it comes out and it's a mangled mess. And you don't quite know what to do when you shake their hand. That's what that offensive line. So experimenting arguments about continuity and cohesion, they've got none of it. So yeah, bring Joel Bitonio or somebody like that. Hell yes, any of them, any fatty with a pulse right now. I'll take fatties with a pulse. My frustration went to tilt in that second half. I wish Kenyon Green had a great and wonderful life, perhaps protecting shopping malls instead of QB. The other thing about Kenyon, man, he's slimmed down and everything, but God, the guy's he's not physically strong. I think when he's heavier, he can't move, and now that he's lighter, he's not strong. In the run game, he just gets destroyed, just blown back off the ball. At the very least, Kendrick, I don't think, gets blown off the ball that way in the run game. He's the one offensive lineman right now. Juice Scruggs is young, and I give him a bit of a pass, and I think he's coming along. But amongst the veteran offensive linemen, Kendrick's the only one that actually looks like he's out there wanting to genuinely beat people. The rest of them just look like they're cashing checks, which they don't even have to do anymore, these kids, because they're auto-deposited. I'm officially emotionally detached from this team. You'll be back. We all will. He was manhandled. I've seen you talking about Kenyon and not Kendrick. I realized the first couple series Kendrick was in, I was watching way too much guard play. So I had to use eye discipline, get my eyes back on the rest of the team. How many sacks would you have versus Kenyon? This is the Seth Payne pass rush, the way it would go usually. I was actually a very good pass rusher, but actually getting from the guy that I beat to the quarterback was a challenge. So I've got lots of film of like me beating a guy in a pass rush, but then not being fast enough to get to him, even an aging Aaron Rodgers. That's how you average 2 sacks a year in the NFL. It was back in the day. Run stuffing was more important, okay? It was a thing. Yeah, I know. He's a first-round pick, and he's being treated like one. He gets chance after chance after chance. I feel like a good OC would be able to make something out of Dell, Woods, Mechie, and Hutchinson. Trading for a wide receiver feels like a Band-Aid. That's the big conundrum, is that you've got Nico Collins theoretically coming back. And I think, look, you saw Tank tonight. I mean, versus a Jets pass defense, it's the second pass defense in the league. They've like we said, the depth chart for the Jets is impressive, both offensively and defensively. They just haven't been playing up to their depth chart. Did they actually play up to their depth chart tonight, or were the Texans just that bad? Was it a matter of Hassan Reddick just, getting his legs underneath him and being 100% back into it now, and that's why he just ran around Laramie Tunsil like he was a standing extra large size piece of candy, whatever your least favorite piece of candy is, licorice stick, maybe. Why does Devontae Adams get to go out for concussion protocol and come back a couple quarters later, but we lose someone for concussion protocol and don't see them for weeks? Because he didn't test positive for a concussion. There. I mean, that's not. It's not like he went. It's not like he went into. It's not like they diagnosed him in the tent with a concussion, and then we're like, let's give it a couple minutes and see if it passes. So yeah, that's why Seth would get a sack using Kenyon's ragdoll. I would have to throw him into. Just like in the medieval times, they used to throw corpses, rotting corpses of animals into the castle with the hopes that disease would fester. That would be my rotting corpse that I would throw into the castle. Yeah, another receiver. CJ's body language. I didn't notice as much as, well, I guess on the thumbnail I put one of the pictures of him being pretty frustrated. CJ will not survive the next 2 games behind the line. He's starting to take a lot of hits, man. This is what I fear. I was just on with Greg Rosenthal on NFL Daily. That's why I was late to this live stream, but I like Greg. We go way back. And David Carr's name came up. And Gary Walker and I were talking about David Carr the other day. You know, David, when we were in practice back in 2002, 2003, I mean, all the way really up through the time David left, he could make some incredible throws. Like he had a lot of talent. But he got so beat up in those first 2 years playing behind a bad offensive line, you know, and he didn't have the types of receivers that CJ's had until, well, Andre got there in the second year. Then things changed a little bit after that. But the first year especially, he had some good guys, but, you know, nothing like CJ's had when all 3 of those guys were out there. And I think it affected David. I think it broke the clock in his head. The timing was all off, and CJ's starting to look pretty uncomfortable back there, and with good reason. I've never had to just stand and get hit in the internal organs over and over again in a football game, like just standing there without being able to defend myself. Oh yeah, that'd be fun. You know what I thought too is Malachi Corley, when he dropped that football. In the moment, as much as I was enjoying it, I did feel like, that poor kid, if they lose this game, which they inevitably will, it's the Jets, that every player should have a mulligan once in his career on something like that. You pull a Leon Lett or something, just on that, for a play like that, where it's a go-ahead touchdown, and you do something boneheaded like that, just once. You only get to do it once in your career, but you can say, okay, you know what? Okay, it was clearly going to be a touchdown. There you go. And I bring that up now in the hopes that it will benefit a Texans player someday soon. Yeah, and this is the trouble. It's I think it's a combination of both, though. When the timing in a quarterback's heads, when the quarterback doesn't trust the pass protection, there's times where you could argue that he's getting rid of it too quickly because the first read is there. He's got protection, but he doesn't, you know, if he's trying to be responsible and take care and help out the offensive line as much as he can, he's going to throw to that first read. But there, in some of those moments when the protection actually is good, there is deeper stuff developing downfield. But then there's other times where he does want to try to hold on to it and the protection breaks down. And as CJ called it a roll of the dice earlier this week, I think that one thing that I'd love to see CJ really start to develop more with and have the coaches put more on his plate is with the pre-snap operation, not just in setting protection, but in IDing blitzes and just things that there are that next level stuff that CJ, you know, and I only bring that up because Bobby had given an answer a few weeks ago about how, you know, they try to have answers built within every play for whatever defense you see, which is cool and that's nice, but the real next level stuff comes when you've got that quarterback that can really, I mean, you saw Aaron Rodgers do it tonight, utilize the hard count to really diagnose what the defense is doing. You saw there was one play, I can't remember what the outcome was. It was one of the fourth downs that the Jets converted. You know, they went up to the line, and they almost tried to make it look like they were trying to bait him off sides. And he's giving the hard count. And the Texans, because they tend not to be incredibly disciplined at holding their water on blitzing, Texans didn't move at all. Nobody showed anything. And, he could tell immediately, and I think there was some motion, so he could tell that they were in zone. And then he carved them up. And it's like that's the next level stuff that the veteran quarterbacks do. But I don't know if the Texans can utilize a hard count because the Texans' offensive line can't stop false starting. What was Laramie's penalty? Was it a false start again? Was it a false start or was it a hold? I can't remember. It's so damn late. They will jump. Yeah, yep. It's a good call, Tommy. It's a good call. That's where they are. They got an offensive line that they can't play. Yeah, and the play calling, and ultimately that's always a chicken and egg thing too. It's a good play call if people execute it properly, but then also it's on Bobby Slowick to have the play executed properly. So there's a couple issues here. Getting the right play called and then executing the play after that. Those are two pretty big details. Actually calling the right play instead of, boy, I don't know if it was maybe because they'd watched Anthony Richardson, a running back, playing quarterback last week, that they thought that the best option down there in the goal line was for Joe Mixon to throw the ball to C.J. Stroud. But it's a hell of some freaking gadgetry, man. A lot of gadgetry. Yeah, and so the routes that are being called have a lot to do with holding the ball so long. 2 running backs in the backfield, Mixon, Agumbawale. One protects or both for more time or dish it the fuck out to them if they're open. That's where I was encouraged early on. I thought they were going to get the quick game going and just it's some quick bangers over the middle of the tight ends and out on the flats, and I thought they were spreading it out pretty well. I think the problem is protection starts to be an issue. I think Bobby's instinct is to close ranks and bring guys in protection. The problem is you're bringing guys in protection who suck at pass protection. But you can't, I don't know, man. I don't know. I got to go. Tune in the morning, 6 a.m. Sean Pendergast and I'll have a total of 5 or 6 hours of sleep because he's still doing the post-game show. So, go listen to the post-game show with Clint and Sean right now on Sports Radio 610. I command you, do it. Good night, everybody. I'll feel